Airtel has announced plans to introduce its super-fast 5th-generation mobile broadband network next month as it seeks to take on dominant rival Safaricom, which launched the service in October last year. Now, debt expenses surpass cost of running Kenyan government by 44.7 billion shillings. The cost of servicing Kenya's rising debt has surpassed spending on recurrent expenses for the national government, in part reflecting President William Ruto's pledge to prioritize obligations to creditors over payments such as salaries. That is the current state of our financial truth. Looking at what we have here on the front page of Business Daily. How 16% fuel tax will hit households, motorists from July. Petrol pumps prices will increase by up to 12 shillings for every litre from next week after members of Parliament voted to double the value-added tax rate on petroleum products to 16 from 8% in a decision that promises to hit households hard. That is a story that you want to follow on page 2 of the Business Daily this morning. Well, I'm joined this morning, as I mentioned, by Dr. J. McPhee, who's a lecturer, School of Accountancy at Strathmore University. Also, Derita Murudi, an economist. We'll be joined later by Bunyasi Sakwa, who is the chair of Vision 2030, and also we'll be joined by Bill Okero, who is a businessman. So let me just invite them, of course, to give the introductory remarks. Bill, it's been a while since I saw you. Yeah, you've been flying off the radar. I know you've got a lot of things to really talk about. The finance bill, the passage now of the finance bill yesterday in Parliament. We're waiting for the assent of the president. The way also the dollar is just falling precipitously right now, and we're given to understand by next day, even for the Eurobond, if it falls at beyond 150, we are in the doldrums. Good morning.
Good morning there.
Yes.
It's very good to be here again.
Thank you.
I must say.
Welcome.
I hope to add my little contribution to the debate that we have each Thursday morning.
Yes.
But I've been incredibly busy. I've had a number of meetings which start off at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they obviously prevent me from being here on a Thursday. The Institute of Certified Public Accountants has a committee there which I chair, and they normally have their meetings on Thursday, but that's not the only one. So that's the reason why you haven't seen me for a long time.
Understandable.
I hadn't passed on, actually. No, that would be the more natural thing.
But I normally say that Thursdays should be actually declared a boardroom meeting day.
Yeah.
Everyone, I don't know why they pick on Thursday. So some of the guests here, they normally miss it on Thursdays as well.
Tomorrow, in fact, here in the Standard, there's going to be a board meeting. But starting at 7:30 in the morning. So that, thank goodness, this show is not on Friday.
Yes. Good, welcome. Derita Murudi as well has been missing, but he's been doggedly following what is happening, also the debate in Parliament, and you've got a lot to say as well. Good to see you.
Oh, glad to be here. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so I just want us to go through the dailies together, and if we may just have it on split screen, it will be nice so that we can just tag along with our viewers. The voting machine of Ruto yesterday is what is on the front page of the Standard, and how the numbers worked in favor of Kenya Kwanza government. We saw Azimio, of which also you're part of as well, dismally or doing poorly as far as voting was concerned. So they knew it. But a lot of filibustering has been happening as well to try and slow the roll of the process.
Well, I don't think we should call it filibustering. I mean, members have proposed amendments to many clauses. And at third reading, when these amendments are proposed, you have to go clause by clause. And so you don't vote for the bill in its totality. You go clause 1, and if there are 5 amendments, you have to dispense each amendment, which means it is proposed, there is debate on a particular amendment, you dispense with that one. If there is a further proposed amendment to the same clause, you go through the same process. So it takes time. So it's not filibustering. As to the numbers, well, certainly the Kenya Kwanza side, had more numbers, and therefore defeated most of the proposed amendments. But that was to be expected, given the broader debate about what has happened to the National Assembly. I think it's in public domain. You will have seen a court case now, I think, trying to unravel how it is that we went from a majority Azimio to a majority Kenya Kwanza. Because when you look at the results as declared in August, the Azimio side had a slight majority. Of course, various constituent parties that were part of the Azimio coalition then said they wanted to leave that coalition, but never really did formally. So there is going to be a whole big contestation in court about whether, in fact, the Speaker Wetangula was correct to declare the Kenya Kwanza, as a majority at that time. So I'm just saying the outcomes in terms of voting yesterday, I'm not quite sure whether they finished with all the amendments or they're going to conclude today, but the voting pattern was to be expected. I think the bigger issue ultimately is the effect of the proposed taxation measures, both on individuals in terms of their incomes, in terms of their consumption pattern, and the impact on business. I think that's the bigger question.
Okay. So do you think it will make any substantial difference if the court rules in your favor? And already we have all these activities in Parliament that have passed, including now this debate on the finance bill. If at all the numbers will change, is there any likelihood? Okay, we're not really preempting or getting really cognizant of sub judice.
Indeed, but you see, in the proper conduct of democracy, Parliament makes law and courts interpret that law, including declaring law unconstitutional, if it is indeed unconstitutional, declaring it invalid and things like that, and then seeking remedial measure. So is there, to try and answer your question, can things change? Of course they can. One of the things, if that ruling goes through, what you will find is that some people will have to go back to the ballot box because of the application of the law. If you defect from the party in which you are elected, then in fact you are expected to go back to the electorate to renew your mandate. So if that court challenge is successful, what you will find is that some members who have defected will be then forced to seek fresh mandate. And I would suspect, if I recall my time in Parliament, that will change the conduct of MPs considerably. And that is the whole point of the whole thing. And that is a democratic thing to be done.
Okay, all right. Allow me to rope in also Bunyasi Sakura just to get his introductory remarks as well before we continue pace with the show. Good morning, good to see you.
Good morning.
Yes. All right, so also you've been following the debate on the finance bill. Your sentiments so far?
I just going to comment on the voting activity because that's where decisions are made in the committee stage. It's normally the least glamorous part of the process. Many members sort of take off and so on. But I just wish that all of the voting was mechanical, was automated. As it is, they have the capacity. They don't use it. Two things will happen. You won't vote if you're not there. Two, your voting pattern, we merge after a while. You do it quietly on your desk, but that report is usually available and so on. I think it will shape the character of the politicians. Voting by acclamation is the most and democratic method. So, when people go in close by close as they debate it, I think if people are listening, you can then get a feel of which specific tax is supposed to work, which specific way. It gives a little more clarity than the broad understanding where only those who have read the bill have an idea what it's actually about.
All right, thank you. Okay, of course, we know now how it is right now, especially where we are being advised to brace ourselves.
Last night, the committee stage.
I do believe it is. There are some that are. No, I believe they'll finish today.
Yeah. So it's not final yet, but it seems all indicators are that he's going to sail through.
No. You see, those clauses that have been dispensed with, that part of the bill is final. Although a final vote, is taken, which is generally procedural, or that the title is part of the bill, that sort of thing, which is But once a clause is dispensed with, that outcome is final. Right. So, for example, the contentious clause about VAT and whether to double it on fuel or not was voted in favor of doubling it, and that is that. Yes.
All right.
So what we should be saying to our viewers and listeners is that come July, you can expect your petrol price to go up by maybe between 10 and 14 shillings.
12 shillings, as
and
we've
that
read
is
from
what
the dailies this morning.
Yeah.
All right, let's just listen into what they have to say, that we're being urged that we should brace ourselves for tough economic times. 184 members of parliament voted for, elected to push tax on fuel to 16% in the National Assembly yesterday. This ostensibly ushers in another phase of hard economic times, with the cost of fuel per litre now likely to increase by 10 shillings to 12 shillings, as KTN's political affairs reporter Emmanuel Toh starts us off.
Banning the midnight oil and adjourning the sittings at midnight Tuesday, the National Assembly picked up from where it stopped on Wednesday afternoon. And just like it was acrimonious on the more contentious clauses, the House reconvened with the amendment on Clause 28 of the Finance Bill 2023 that sought to increase the value-added tax on fuel products from the current 8% to 16%.
As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
The clause, as expected, opening a war front between the Kenya Kwanza MPs and the opposition.
You guys want us to operate on subsidy. You guys want us to operate
members,
on...
if you're on your feet, I am not giving you. Member for...
The last parliament, if he has forgotten, rejected the 16%. We only allowed 8% after the president's memorandum.
Let us agree on this one. We must remove this VAT on the fuel. Otherwise, I promise you there will be a revolution in this country if this one passes. I promise you. I promise you. I promise.
Right now, Kenyans cannot even afford to pay the fares from where they are to the working place and even to schools. So when you increase to 16%, it means the cost of living is going to be very high.
The Kenya Kwanza side maintaining Kenya's VAT was lower compared to other countries in East Africa, an assertion that did not sit well with the opposition.
VAT in Kenya, even at 16%, is still the lowest. Uganda being at 18% on fuel. Our friends in Tanzania, Rwanda, also at 18%, Honorable Speaker.
That fuel is cheaper in Uganda and Tanzania by far, Madam Chair. By far, Madam Chair. What do you know?
If by any chance, and God forbid, that this finance bill is passed and it becomes an act of parliament, that will mark the beginning of the fall of this regime. I can tell you.
And after the division vote that took over an hour, the Kenya Kwanza side, which supported the amendments, had its way, as it has done in the previous clauses.
The ayes 184, the nays 88. Therefore, the ayes have it.
The Kenya Kwanza side has won previous physical votes by over 180 votes, while Azimio only managed an average of 80 votes on all the contentious clauses. During the heated sessions, members from each side of the political divide exchanged roles, with Githongori MP Gathoni Omoshomba and her counterpart from Kabuchai Majimbo Kalasinga, both from Kenya Kwanza, going against the grain.
Life is unbearable as we speak to our citizens of this republic. We cannot afford to add more levy on fuel because fuel is a catalyst of everything.
The Nairobi woman representative Esther Passaris also went against her coalition stand.
For the dignity, peace, stability and prosperity of the country of Kenya, I vote yes.
All the 87 clauses contained in the bill must be passed before June 30th this month. Emmanuel Tor, KTN News, Nairobi.
Now, Trade Cabinet Secretary Moses Kuria has been barred by the High Court from uttering belittling or demeaning words against the media. Justice Lawrence Mugambi ruled in a petition seeking to declare the CS unfit for public office. This came as Azimio senators stormed out of the Senate protesting the appearance of Kuria in what they termed as efforts to sanitize him of allegations leveled against him in the media. And that report, Dylan Karuki has it.
CS Moses Kuria is a man under scrutiny for his integrity specifically.
Let us pray.
In the last few days, the CS has hit the headlines for all the wrong reasons. His fight against the Fourth Estate. On Wednesday, CS Kuria was before the Senate to outline his ministry's progress, but before he could answer questions, Azimio senators raised a point of order, demanding to find out whether it was proper for the CS to appear before the House with a censure motion on his conduct filed already in the House.
And my fear is that the CS is going to use this privilege of appearance before the Senate to cleanse himself of the accusations that are contained in that motion.
The things that the Honorable Moses Kuria has said about the media in relation to aspects that touch on the questions that were asked by Senator for Marsabit.
Our colleagues in the minority side have never taken time to listen to any particular cabinet secretary. But today, they want to stop the rest of us who want to continue holding the executive to account.
Senate Speaker Mason Kingi allowed Kuria to proceed, saying the censure motion on Kuria had not been admitted in the House yet.
Having not seen this proposed motion, it cannot be a subject of discussion on the floor of the House today.
This prompting Azimio senators to storm out, leaving the Kenya Kwanza senators in the House. Azimio expressing their displeasure over the CS presence in the House.
Media freedom is a key pillar of any democratic state. So for somebody who has used such vile language that we cannot even repeat here, directed at members of the press, to again be allowed to speak to members of the Senate here.
We should not allow this parliament to be soiled by the character of Moses Kuria. It's important that such kind of persons should not even hold the position of the cabinet secretary.
I am not apologizing. There's nobody who is pro-media more than me. But I know the difference between media and what Thomas Baldwin called the prerogative of the harlot, the exercise of power without responsibility.
Kuria claiming owners of several edible oil farms were behind the expose in the media.
The reason that there is the outcry in the media is that, in my honest opinion, is noise sponsored by these 5 companies which I have stated.
Those allegations, if you cannot prove them, kindly drop them. If you can prove them, go ahead and give us factual basis of those allegations.
At the same time, the High Court has issued orders stopping trade CS Moses Kuria from uttering or expressing any insulting and demeaning words against any media practitioner. Justice Lawrence Mugambi issued the order following an application filed by one Charles Mogane, a human rights defender, on the suitability of Kuria to hold office. The matter will be mentioned on 24th July this year. Daniel Kariuki, KTN News.
And in the same breath, President William Ruto has taken the side of his besieged Trade Cabinet Secretary, Moses Kuria, regarding his stand with the media. The president accused the media of treating him and his government unfairly. He was quick to declare that his government supports freedom of the media, adding that the media also needs to embrace freedom of expression. He also curiously stated that he will defend Kenyans from Moses Kuria.
The free media, we must defend their right to criticize, to say whatever it is that they want to say, even to write propaganda, even to say the wrong things, even to write falsehood. You know, we must defend that right. But we must also defend the right of those who hold the media to account or who call out the media when the media goes rogue. We must also defend the right of people like Moses Kuria to speak their mind. The same way, we are defending the media to say all the things they want, including the wrong ones, right? And I saw one journalist saying the president should defend us from Moses Kuria. That's fine. I will do my bit. But I want to ask them, so who is going to defend me from rogue media? Because I go through hell all the time. Yes. Yeah? So I think we need a fair balance. Yeah, we need a fair balance. And I think if they are feeling pain about what others say about them, it should tell them there are people who feel pain when they write falsehood about others.
This is where it all began. What is on the front page of the Daily Nation revealed cooking oil and rice tycoons that has really blown the gasket of Moses Kuria. I ran it by you, but I can take another shot at it just to prime you if you missed it. CS Moses Kuria yesterday, of course, tabled a list of 11 companies contracted by the Kenya National Trading Corporation to import various commodities in a plan to lower food prices. 4 of them, which bagged 6.85 billion shillings deals, are linked to city businesswoman Mary Wamboi, and this is what is on the front page of Daily Nation. Tucked away, you can follow the story on page 6 and 7. And the Flagger Reed scandal, 22 firms were pre-qualified, but criteria of awarding tenders raises many questions. And this is where I just want us to begin this particular conversation on what we've just run by you. Director Muredi, Dr. McPhee, Bill Okero, good morning, welcome, and also Bunyasi Sakwa. Regarding this particular scandal on KNTC and the cooking oil and the procurement that was not really, the process was floated, it was not really proper, and corruption that really comes with it as well. And this is where Moses Kuria has been riling the media.
First of all,
can we begin? Then we'll come to you. Yes, we'll listen to you. Okay.
I was going to say that any time when you see media and politicians being friends, then you should be afraid. Yeah? So to me, the fact that, as you said, a politician is blowing off his gasket, as you put it, is a good thing. It means you are pointing to something that is going wrong. And that is the job of the media, I mean, to speak truth to power and to let the Republic know what is going on. So I don't think we should be too concerned that some politician is, upset because you've laid out the truth. This story of cooking oil, I think on this very panel, quite a number of months ago, I think we did
last week as well
talk to it, that it was ill-conceived. It seemed it could not really be for the purpose of bringing down the cost of living. Because if the idea is to import edible oils, why would you do it through KNTC in the first place? I mean, the companies that produce edible oils and so on, in any case, if you are removing import duties, you should remove for everybody, not for a particular entity. And of course, at that time, many people did point out, KNTC, a government body that, has really been performing at a very low level, and how could it then be expected to do this? In any case, in the end, it is not KNTC importing, it is private interests importing and then reselling to KNTC so that KNTC can resell. How are you going to reduce prices by doing that? It has been a scandal in the making for many months, and really government should own up and clean up, as opposed to the cabinet secretary, or at least one of those in charge, trying to insult media.
But yesterday we saw a tabulation given by KNTC on how also the prices have reduced.
Well, I would like to see it, but I do know the members of this government routinely say, for example, they will say unga prices have come down, but customers, when we go to the supermarket or the neighborhood shop, we don't experience those lower prices of unga. Yeah? So it will be interesting to see if you go to the supermarket shelf to point to edible oils that are cheaper now because of this scheme, and I would like to see it. Yeah? The routine that we have seen over and over is members of this government saying one thing, but the practical reality and the life facing Kenyans is very different from what they are claiming.
All right, let's hear from Dr. McPhee on this latest development. We have seen also that he's proposing a revision, or at least of 35% on the importation of the edible oils, or to the manufacturers of the edible oils.
You see, what Nderitu was saying is something that really could be said about every Kenyan. That's our problem. We have to change Kenya, every man, woman, and child. And I think, first of all, the point here really is that, you have people who are rich in Kenya, and when, for example, they overspend, who is it that is going to be affected? It's the poor people. But how many people in Kenya think about the poor? We can talk about them. We can talk about the wananchi watukufu, as especially Jomo Kenyatta used to speak about in the old days. But the fact is, you see, we have a fundamental problem in Kenya. Number one, because of the whole problem of corruption, which is, let's face it, it's in every single entity in Kenya. It's even in the family, all right? A past student of mine was telling me yesterday that her father had died in the bar. Now, I don't know what his business was. He may be a lawyer or something of that nature. But he was there. His friend left him at 2 o'clock in the morning. At 6 o'clock in the morning, the barman went to shake the man. He had died of a heart attack. So the point is, why is a married man going off and sitting in a bar drinking on his own when he should be there at home with his wife and his family? We got to change so many things in Kenya. And one of the things that we have to do is to change our behavior in relation to corruption. We live in a country where we cannot trust anyone. You can't trust me, Dabar, okay? And I can't trust you. And, it's the same. Maybe I can trust Bela because he's a Muslim and Muslims behave themselves. But, but the point is, this, to my mind, we have a really fundamental problem. For example, and this is when you were discussing a little bit earlier with Nderitu. You see, we have a massive trade deficit in Kenya. Okay, we're almost 2 trillion shillings. Now, what does that mean? It means, you see, we actually finance 35% of our imports with our exports. Now, which is the biggest item on our import bill? Oil. Now, you've got to remember here, you see that fortunately, oil is trading at $70 a barrel. If we go back 3 years, it was trading at $35 a barrel. If we go back 2 years, okay, there was a time there was a spike at over $100. But you see, let's take the present price of oil, okay? It's $70 a barrel. Now, 2 years ago, the exchange rate was 100 shillings. So 70 multiplied by 100 gives you 7,000 shillings a barrel, Kenya shillings. Today, the exchange rate is 140. Bilo will tell you he's paying 150 when he buys dollars. But anyway, now let's suppose we take the figure of 140. 70 multiplied by 140 is going to give you 9,800 shillings, which is 40% more than it was 3 years ago. Okay? No, 2 years ago. But why? Because our exchange rate has gone from 100 to 140. But why has it gone from 100 to 140? Because our import bid is so huge. And you see, you know, I see young people driving the very latest Mercedes. You know, this is, and you know, what I'm actually in favor of the increase in VAT on petrol. When I was 20 years ago, I was giving lectures, a series of lectures in Texas in the US. And I was comparing Texas with Kenya. And, you know, at that time they had 10 million vehicles. We had 1 million. Today in Kenya we have 4.5 million vehicles. Now, I'm not the poorest man in Kenya. I drive a car. Can I afford to pay an extra 12 shillings? Yes. This on Monday and Tuesday this week, I did not move in order to save fuel. How many Kenyans even think about that? They don't even think about that. But our biggest single import item is precisely petrol, diesel, and kerosene, oil. So, you know, when the price goes up, economics will tell you that, you know, the use is actually less. Well, labda, you know, because who are the people who drive these vehicles in Kenya? The middle class. And in this particular case, all right, they probably will not drive less. Now, if I'm running a business, okay, that is input VAT, and I can offset that against my output VAT. Now, the matatus can't do that. So, unfortunately, the price of traveling for the matatus is going to go up. But, you know, I remember I was taking one of our students, Rolly Rotich, up to Capsbid Boys School a number of years ago. And we went across the county border. They had a chain across the road. I said, Rolly, we got to pay here, haven't we? How much? He said, no. And at that moment, a big 4x4 overtook us. It went straight through. The chain was down. But a matatu was there. They charge, only matatus have to pay here. I didn't have to pay. So all the time, our problems here are with the poor people in Kenya. If, for example, the Kenya shilling goes up to 150 shillings per dollar, that barrel of oil is now going to cost us 10,500 shillings, 50% more than 2 years ago, purely because of the exchange rate. Now, if the price of oil goes up, if, you know, the moment is pretty low, okay, because there are all sorts of factors which contribute to that, but if the price of oil is going to go up, we're really going to suffer. We're going to suffer. Well, will I suffer? The fact is, you know, I try to be as economical as I can in my travel, okay? But I think, you know, there are 4.5 million Kenyans who, you know, have they even thought about this? They don't even think about this. But the price going up probably will mean that we spend less on our fuel, which is a very good thing for Kenya. And I think so often, you know, we're thinking about, you know, ourselves rather than Kenya as a country. And I feel that that's where we've got to have a fundamental change. And, you know, the point is, if there was no corruption in the government, the salaries of all of our civil servants would have been paid. You know, it's as simple as that. But, you know, I was talking to a student yesterday. He got a job in Nakuru. He was running the finances of a particular business. Let me not mention it too specifically. But now, the lady runs a Pajero. The man drives a RAV4. It's a family business. He has not received a salary for 7 months. These people, they haven't paid all of their creditors. They get money and they spend it on themselves instead of on the business. They don't realize, now wait a moment, you've got to have money, and that business is going to go into collapse. And I tell you, look at the newspapers, how many cars, how many Pajeros even, and Jaguars and Mercedes are up for sale by the banks. Why? Because we're living beyond our means. The whole of Kenya. The whole of Kenya. It's a very fundamental. And then Nderitu brings in someone, I think it was Bunyasi, who mentioned the word democracy. To my mind, that's our problem.
Democracy is our problem.
Democracy, we've been brainwashed by the Americans. Democracy, does democracy work in the United States? Does it work in the UK? Does it work in France? Does it work in Germany? Does it work in Kenya?
Well, yes, I think so. Depends on how you look at it.
No,
I think we can't blame democracy. I think, in my view, our problem is one of governance. I mean,
it's poor governance.
The problem we have in Kenya and Africa or other countries is governance. It's not about democracy. And governance, when you have bad governance, then democracy cannot be an excuse. Democratic institutions have helped us. The only reason why we have survived even this long in this country is because of these democratic institutions that we have. At least we can speak our mind in Parliament. We can speak our mind in the media where we are now. Imagine if we are not able to say what we are saying now in this country, the situation would even be worse. We would be in a worse situation than we are as a nation. So at least we are able to. They can, I always say they can steal, but at least let them allow us to talk and say how marvelous we were watching you guys steal our money and we can't do anything about it. But so I think we have every time we have a new government, we are always hoping that the situation will get better. So this morning I was reading that statement by the liberal when Margaret Thatcher was being elected. I think Neil Kinnock, the speech he gave when they were going for the election of Margaret Thatcher, and how he won. And the list of warnings, maybe later you will be able to show. Very interesting. So when this government was coming in, many of us were optimistic that things would be different. The issue of the corruption in particular. These things will not be seen, these headlines. But unfortunately, we are back to what Professor Jim and others have always taught us, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. The institutions are the same. The people, appear to be just the same. Nothing is changing. And so I think it's unfortunate when the CS appeared yesterday in the Senate. The senators did not really pin him down on the potential loss that KNTC is facing through this fraudulent tenders. They did not focus on that. They were very kind to him because they were all from one side and they were all from the government side. And so they, just asked him questions that did not dig out what exactly, how much is this product. If they are buying at this amount and selling at this amount, what is the loss and so forth. All the details that you see in the newspapers were not being raised. And it's unfortunate that I would summarize it this way. They spent 22 billion, that's what the CS has told us in the tenders, to reduce the cost of living, buying rice and sugar and oil and beans and those things. But if you ask any Kenyan whether the cost of living has gone down from the time this government was sworn in, I think everyone in this table would agree nothing has changed really. In fact, it's getting worse now. Next week when this law is passed, it's not about the vehicles we are using. It's about the ripple effects on the economy by the high cost of energy. Not just the high cost of energy, but even power will go up, by the way, because power is always conscious about the cost of fuel. The moment the cost of fuel goes up by another 8%, KPLC will be up. And so the cost of production will go up. And if cost of production goes up, the cost of living will go up. Things will get worse. I do not know why our leaders, particularly the members of parliament, seem to ignore this fact that, look, this thing is going to cause chaos. I mean, you can tell IMF, look, we can do other things, but we can't do this. Well, this is all about IMF. But I think it's unfortunate that the government is dealing with corruption differently depending on who's involved. When it is KEMSA, action is taken immediately. If it's NHIF, action is taken immediately. If it is KNTC, then they are sacred cows. No action is being taken. The president doesn't want to hear about it. The CS, pretends, tries to deflect the story into other stories. So I think we can't run a country this way. I think if you have zero tolerance to corruption, if you hear there is something happening, you cannot accuse the minister of the media of being wrong. You are being given information. This is what is happening in your ministry, in your state corporation. Take action. So if I were the president of the Republic of this country, hopefully I will one day if you guys elect me, I would take action on something that gets reported. Really like this. I will not just pretend that everything is fine and accuse the media of just fighting me. So I think we should do something. Otherwise, people will continue losing confidence in government, and that's not a very good thing in the society.
And if media had not really focused on this as well, it wouldn't really have prompted the committee to call Moses Kuria before them to give accountability of this.
You see, when you have the entire opposition or half of the opposition being taken over by government, half of the opposition, they had over 100 and nearly 170, 100 and they are now left around 80 yesterday in the House, 88. All the others have gone to government. So the only opposition left seriously in this country is the media. And I think media should not be pretentious about it. Say yes, if that's what you want, yes, we are the opposition. Because you have taken over all the opposition, contrary to what the Constitution provides. And so for me, the Constitution itself is critical. On Chapter 6, look at Chapter 6. It says an officer, very clearly, a state officer must demonstrate respect for people and bring honor to the nation and dignity of the office. Media can write whatever they want. They have not taken an oath of office to this Constitution. But the CS and the president took an oath to this Constitution. They cannot say what they want. They cannot use, language as used by the CS, because that will be contrary to what they have, the oath they have taken on this Constitution. So you cannot say, if you guys do that, we're also going to do this. I think that is misplaced, in my view. Yeah.
Right. Sako, you talked about the price of fuel going up next week. You're looking at the 12 shillings going up. But still we have the CS of energy, this is Churchill, saying that we need now to set up a task sort of force again, or a committee to try and analyze and try and scrutinize what is really happening to try and lower the cost of energy. Barely 1 year, we had a task force by President Uhuru Kenyatta. So what is your assessment? It has
not been implemented.
That has not been implemented yet. Now is mulling over on another task force. Just briefly before we take a short break.
Yes, but you allow me to step. Since McPhee did me a big favor this morning, has mentioned me twice.
But I also mentioned democracy.
So I'm committed to democracy. This is democracy.
And I am committed to non-democracy.
A couple of things. I think it's failure in institutions that have been set up in playing their role properly to keep government in check, even to keep corruption in check, and so on. It's a significant failure. Even if you look at these parliamentary processes of inviting, say, CSS and others before their committees, Bila was talking about MPs asking very cursory questions, not prodding anything, and so it's also a spotlight on their performance. And I think that they should also be called out. You don't ask people like this, even if they are of your own party, to go and pat them on the back. You're playing a role of oversight for your own, even if it's oversight of your own part of the government, as it were, if you are in a party that's ruling. So I think it is also a testimony on how Parliament works, and I think Kenyans are going to get deep insights on that. The other one is we come to a point where we are losing faith in one of the most powerful instruments for price control, for price mitigation. When prices are high and you can't get quick supply response to sort of dampen them, imports are an option. But not when you fiddle with imports to an extent where the landed costs are perhaps even higher than the inflated prices and so on. I think that kind of thing not only should be called out, but I think the key agency should investigate, because that's now operating within the public domain. The Auditor General should get into it. Parliament has committees that can look at this. They should look at this preemptively. They shouldn't even be waiting until everybody has been shamed into saying something for them to call these kinds of officials. And if found that it was inappropriate, they should be sanctioned appropriately. If we don't do that, we are failing the state. And I don't even believe that you would be helping, even if your own, even if it's your party in the government, that you're helping the president simply by hiding things. On the energy question, energy is another very complicated time. And each time you hear there is going to be a committee or a commission of inquiry or a task force, it's buying time. Someone wants to get sort of breathe in a couple of times while that is going on to say, so how do you exactly deal with this? And over time, hopefully the tide would have changed somewhat, and then it's no longer really relevant. You can keep quiet and kind of thing. I think that these CSs actually have the powers to come out with a kind of policy publicly and say, this is what I intend to do to mitigate these price increases. Or I'm doing nothing and let the price increase to whatever level they get to and face the consequences. But I don't think we should hide behind committees. Because at the end of the day, government is about doing actions that collectively improve the quality of life and the standard of living of the people. If they undermine that, that's a real problem. And I don't think any president would consciously run a system that will undermine the efforts to increase the standards of living of the people. So I think the openness of the press and the openness of our social media and your round table here on Thursday mornings as well, I think is really a good part of democracy, and I think we should maintain
Allow us to take a short break right now. It is 7 o'clock, all the noise. And when we circle back, we continue with this analysis as well as far as the edible oil imports is concerned, because we have the CS also proposing that there will be a removal of 35% duty to lower price amid this particular saga. Is it coming way too late because he wants to pacify